On today's special episode of Homeworthy, we're visiting 4 homes that shine with personality, creativity, and the kind of layered charm that turns small spaces into something truly spectacular. First, we step inside a cheerful 1930s cottage in Dallas, where vintage treasures, bold personality, and a touch of Wes Anderson whimsy come together in 1,500 square feet of charm. Next, on Manhattan's Upper East Side, a classically trained designer shows that timeless details, bold patterns, and personal storytelling can transform a compact apartment into a space full of depth and distinction. And finally, in Brooklyn, we tour a warm and whimsical family home lovingly crafted over 15 years, filled with collected curiosities, clever storage, and unexpected joy. This summer, Homeworthy is proud to support the nonprofit Serious Fun.
Hey volunteers! We need you! To give kids living with serious illnesses a chance to go to camp, just like any other kid. And always at no charge. But we can't do it without you.
People talk about the magic of camp, but the magic is created by the people.
At Serious Fun Camps, no matter what you do best, there's a job you can do here to make memories that will last a lifetime.
It's magical, and it will be the best decision you make to get involved.
On today's episode of Homeworthy, we're visiting the absolutely darling home of Melissa Smarker, who describes her personal design style as town and country Tenenbaum.
People all the time come in and are like, gorgeous rug. Where is this vintage rug from? I'm like, it is from rugsusa.com. And it's probably my favorite rug I've ever bought. So it is the indestructible pet-proof rug. So that's it, the high-low mix.
She has packed her 1,500 square foot home full of personality, pizzazz, and more vintage items than you can imagine. She is so much fun, and her home is a delight.
The interesting thing about this room is absolutely everything in here, besides the wallpaper, is secondhand. So I've sourced things from Goodwill and Salvation Army and things from my childhood home. I love a chintzy drape, and these were from Goodwill. So I got the 2 panels for like $8, I think, total.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Like and subscribe for more.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Melissa, which means honeybee in Greek. Welcome to my Dallas home. Come on in. Hi, my name is Melissa Smarker. We are in my 1,500 square foot home in the Lakewood neighborhood of Dallas, Texas. So when I started looking for a house, thankfully I really don't suffer from analysis paralysis. I'm very decisive. So I probably only saw 5 homes, and I would instantly walk in and my realtor would be like, what do you think? And I'd be like, I hate it. So when I saw this house, it really felt like me. And I put an offer in the same day. I actually didn't get it. And then there was this massive storm in Dallas where the electricity was out for a few days. And during that, the original person who they accepted the offer for backed out, and they called me, and it was my house. And it always felt like my house. So I was really surprised originally when I didn't get it. So when I first purchased the home, the previous owner had made a lot of really nice renovations to this home, which is a 1939 home. And so I can always see past paint colors and light fixtures and that kind of thing. Her style wasn't my style. It was a lot more bohemian. But I could see, I liked the natural light. It was the right size. It's only 1,500 square feet, but it makes really good use of 1,500 square feet and has things that I want, which is like a big kitchen and a nice yard. This is my living room. So you walk in the front door into this living room, which is true a lot of the time for 1939 homes. Probably the statement piece in this living room is my olive green velvet sofa with this white piping. This is the first piece of custom furniture that I've ever purchased. So for me, that was I really knew that I wanted a green velvet sofa. I'm very particular about shades of green. So I hand selected this velvet, and it was made by Society Social in North Carolina. And I love the piping on it. So that's, that was a big deal because that's like my first big girl grown up piece of furniture. And then probably after that, my birds here. So this is Gucci wallpaper that you've maybe seen before, but when I had these done, this was new to Gucci, and I bought the wallpaper and I had them framed. It's actually on like a core board. So these weigh like nothing, and had them framed as a way to just go around the window. So people always comment, they say swans, but they're actually herons. Get your birds right. So I love swans, but these are herons. And so those frame the room really nicely. As far as window treatments go, the thing nobody tells you on these home tours is that nothing is more insanely overpriced than window treatments. Nobody's telling you this, that if I wanted to get this Schumacher fabric here to make window treatments, I would need 30 yards of it, and it's $150 a yard. So not feasible for me or many. So one of my little tricks that I like to do with window treatments is take something neutral and then add a designer trim to it. So this is a Samuel & Sons trim, which is my very favorite. They have beautiful trims. And then, so I picked this, the black giant rickrack, because there's black in the fireplace, which you'll see. And I just take it to my local tailor and I'm like, this is what I want. And if I give very careful instructions as far as how to sew something on or the placement, they do a great job. So you can make something semi-custom in your own, because, I'm not spending $5,000 on a drape. So this is my entryway catch-all table, and I made this very recently. So I found this a significant amount of yardage at just a little thrift store, and I love the pink cabana stripe. And then I also found an excess of this trim, so I picked that up. Both of them are a couple dollars each, and I just, like most people take their jeans to get hemmed at their local tailor, I'm like, will you make me a skirted entryway table? And if you draw out exactly what you're looking for, they do a great job for, hardly anything. So I got this beautiful skirted entryway table for about $15. People all the time come in and are like, gorgeous rug. Where is this vintage rug from? I'm like, it is from rugsusa.com. And it's probably my favorite rug I've ever bought. So it is the indestructible pet proof rug. So that's it, the high-low mix. So twice a year, there is an antique show in a very tiny Texas town called Round Top. Normally the town has a population of 90 people. And then 2 times a year in April and October, people descend from all over the world for this incredible antique show. There's a bunch of different shows. And my very favorite one is called Marburger. It is the creme de la creme of Round Top. If you ever go, that's the show. And I got this gorgeous pencil read table from there. I love it. The thing about Round Top is it starts at 9 o'clock. There's literally policemen on horses who blow a whistle. And when they blow a whistle, women start running. And I would say within 2 hours, everything has a sold sticker on it. So it's like, if you see something you like, time is of the essence. And yeah, that was my last Round Top purchase. So fireplace here. So the unique thing about this bench is that it's exactly the same color, velvet, and piping as the sofa. This is from the 60s and this is from 2019. And if you hold them side by side, they're exactly the same. So I got this as an estate sale for, I think, $30. It's a perfect match. So those estate sale finds are sprinkled all throughout. We all know about the frame TV. People, it's supposed to look like art on the wall. It looks like a TV. It just looks like a nice TV, just for the record, if you're ever thinking about buying one. I am a corporate fundraiser for a presenting Broadway theater here in Dallas, and a gal of many hobbies outside of that. Many hobbies are, I play mahjong, I needlepoint, I have a needlepoint collection, I write, I perform comedy, I love to decorate. And then I have a lot of books, and at one point in time, these were alphabetical. Hopefully they still are. I'm very type A, so they are theoretically in alphabetical order. I collect heron pieces. All that means something. I went to the University of North Carolina. I have a gorgeous black standard poodle named Tippy. You'll see a lot of poodle things throughout the house. Gwynny, Tippy. Those are their little paw prints right there. So anyway, the bookcases, I think, are the only IKEA thing in this house. And then I just painted them the color of the walls, which is my all-time favorite color. It's Farrow and Ball setting plaster. It looks like the color of a crumbly Italian villa, and it really changes through the day. So, you know, the light moves through my house at all different points, and it can look pink in certain lights, but it also is a very beautiful neutral. So if you can get away with a semi-pink color in your house, setting plaster is chef's kiss. So good. Okay, so the chairs are also from Society Social. And just like I talked about the fabric before, I ended up doing 2 different fabrics. So the Schumacher on the outside so that I didn't have to buy as much yardage, and then a performance fabric on the front because I have pets and that worked better for my lifestyle. So that's a good way to save some money too as far as yardage and how the repeat goes. In a small space, swivel chairs are obviously great so that they can face the TV, or if you're just having conversation, you know, face the person you're talking to. So the Mahjong table is a trip because actually this is a 1960s Italian inlay game table. It has a different top, which is stored under my sofa right now. And I really was looking for this particular game table, and I found it on eBay in a tiny little Texas town, and I bought it on eBay. I go to pick it up. It's in, I kid you not, a beauty parlor / thrift shop. So there's all these, you know, thrift items you can sort through, and there were 2 ladies getting their roots done at the same time in chairs in the middle of the thrift store. Apparently these tables were really popular souvenirs for women to buy in the 60s when they took a trip on the island of Capri. So I've heard that anecdotally from people. They're like, oh, my grandma got that when she went to Capri in the 60s. So it has a chessboard, a backgammon board, the felt, which is for cards, and then underneath it, it has a roulette wheel. So we can party. This is my cat, Gwynny. She loves the camera, as we can see. I just played in my first tournament. I've only been playing Mahjong for about 6 months, and in the spirit of overdoing things no one asked me to do, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna play in a tournament. And I show up, it's all ladies in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. Most of the women I played against have been playing for more than 50 years. I thought I was going to play 4 games, and it was 4 rounds of four games. I played 16 consecutive Mahjong games and ordered takeout on the way home and was like, no one talked to me. Like, I am spent. It was the most mentally exhausted I've been in 10 years. You know what? My goal for the day was to win 1 game, and I won 3 games, including against a former tournament champion. And I'm like, you know what, Nancy? I'm going to be telling everyone about this. And she's like, you should. And she asked me if I was 18. I'm 36, so.
So it was a good day.
I was like, this is a win. This is a win for me. I got 3. I'm going to brag about this for years. When people ask me to describe my aesthetic, I think that's a really hard thing to answer without sounding like a douche. Like, it is just, like, every time people say it, they're like, you know, it's traditional, but with a twist. Just like everyone says the same thing. So collectively, I pulled the internet for them to determine how to describe my style. And we came up with Town and Country Tenenbaum, which I feel like is a really good little way to encapsulate my home style. So to me, I would describe Town and Country Tenenbaum as a use of non-traditional color pairings. Like, you'll see that I love what I call a calamine lotion pink with martini olive green. I love that as a combination. That feels like very true to me. And just taking things that maybe don't seem to go together, but I like the colors together and to mix old and new. And I have these gorgeous old vintage pieces with, you know, then you'll have something from Target. And so to me, it's just that blend from both spectrums, but also I mean, I don't describe myself as quirky, but I definitely hear that a lot. Other people describe me in that way, so I think that's part of it. Welcome to my dining room here. The table and the china cabinet were actually from my childhood home growing up. So this set was the first thing that my dad bought for my mom after they got married, and he always says, I made payments on it. And it's really special to them that I have it in my house now. So many Christmas Eve dinners and special celebrations around this table, and that's important to me, just that it's part of my family's history and that we've had special times together. So one of the only things I didn't change cosmetically when I moved into the house is this wallpaper was already here. So this is a Scalamandre wallpaper called Raphael. It's actually inspired by the trees of Central Park in New York. And so I kept that here. Green is my favorite color. I thought it looked beautiful, and I don't want to rip something apart just for the sake of doing it. And so because it was inspired by the trees of Central Park, I had a friend paint me these Bemelmans inspired pieces, because also the scenes at Bemelman's Bar at the Carlisle Hotel in New York take place in Central Park. So that's the reference there. It's one of my very favorite places in New York City. And so I work in theater, meaning I have a lot of creative friends, and there's an older gentleman who works at the theater who's a painter from Ukraine. He does beautiful work. And so I sent him a few pictures of my favorite scenes from nights at Bemelman's, and he painted these for me. People always think they're prints, but he's just a very, very talented painter, and I'm so happy to have those in here. So this room reminds me of just favorite weekends in New York City, and that's a nod to those. So I think I thrive in like an 8-person dinner party environment. I'm not good in a giant group, but you give me 7 friends and having them over for dinner, and that's like my favorite thing in the world. So I love to have dinner parties here. For the record, I will normally move this table out. I have an extra leaf. I do not believe in making your guests sit on bench seating because we all need lumbar support. So just for the record, any of my friends would be like, bench seating. So anyway, it's warm a lot of the time of the year here. So it's set for friends to come over for dinner. And even if I'm just going to order pizzas for the group, I think it's fun to set the table. I love these monogram linens. They're from a store in Dallas called Madison. They have the beautiful raised monogram, and they just make it special. The tried and true Reese Witherspoon quote is like, if it's moving, put a monogram on it. And that is a very Southern philosophy. So I do love a monogram, but I also enjoy a 2-letter monogram, or I love when people monogram something with their nickname on it. So you'll see a little of that in the house too. So since this was my first home, I did not want to be a first-time homeowner and undergo a massive renovation. So everything I've done in the house has been cosmetic, and also that made it more palatable for me from a budget perspective, because obviously it's a lot easier and less expensive to paint walls and change light fixtures than it is to gut a kitchen. So I've pretty much changed all of the light fixtures in the house. I've painted most of the rooms. I love wallpaper, which you will see. So there's a lot of wallpaper, and honestly just, filled it with things that I love that have a story. You can walk around this house and you will. And anything you ask me about, there's a reason it's there and why it's important to me and why it's in my house. This is my kitchen that we're in right now. It's not original to the 1939 house because kitchens were significantly smaller back then. And it was definitely one of the selling points of this home for me. It has these beautiful floors, which I don't see very often here in Dallas, but I love them. And they also, hide things very well. If you have a spill or drop something, it's just very easy to clean up these floors. So when I moved into the space, it had this huge mid-century light fixture that I just absolutely hated. And it was so I replaced it with these. These are a bent birchwood pendant lights. They weigh hardly anything, and they remind me of bows. Like, they remind me of like a gift bow, and I just really love them, and I think they're special and just something a little bit different. And they balance out the fact that I have this, heavy kitchen island here, and then the very light fixtures. So when I moved in, the island was actually one of the most challenging things to figure out what to put here, because it needed something, and I searched high and low, and I found what I thought was going to purchase, this gorgeous vintage draper's table from France that I found on First Dibs. I'm like, this is it. I'm going to pay all this money to get it over here. And then I found this island at Crate and Barrel. So people are always like, where did you get that? Was it custom? And I'm like, it's from Crate and Barrel. But it was perfect for the space. And obviously it makes cooking, or, people always congregate in the kitchen. That's just what people do. So it's been very good. I think all the time people associate me with this big concrete swan planter, which I found, again, at a little thrift store. I love this swan very much, and I do not have a green thumb whatsoever. So the fact that I've kept this ivy along for 2 years is like a significant win in my life. So take them where you get them, and that's how I feel about my swan. This is really kind of a prop, if I'm being honest. No, I don't make a lot of juice, but I think it looks nice in the kitchen. I would say I've never made juice with this juicer, but it's cute. It's very cute. Every space that I live in, I like to give a nickname to, just as a way to mark a period in my life. So I call this house Melon House. And that's because when I moved in, I was reading a biography of Bunny Mellon, and she's, a very famous arborist, horticulturist, art philanthropist, known for her interior design. And because I decided to keep the tree wallpaper in the dining room, I nicknamed this house Melon House. So you'll see that in little places. People give me things. Let's say that. So this is my little bar area here. When I moved in, it had this wine fridge. I'm actually not a big drinker, so it's definitely a goal of mine to just fill it with Diet Cokes as my home tour. But anyway, so I needle pointed this club pour only. A club pour is very generous. It's a place that gives you a very generous pour. And in my house, whatever you're drinking, I'm gonna top it off. And I found this little set. I actually found half of it one place, half of it another place. But it's a vintage Fitz and Floyd set inspired by the Danish sculptor Bjorn Windblad. His pieces appear in Neiman Marcus restaurants that are very beloved here in Dallas. So this little set reminds me of that. So these chairs here I absolutely love. I got both of them for a total of $40 on Facebook. And they're called Italian grotto stools. You'll see these a lot in Palm Beach, which is another place that I love. But I bought them for $40 on Facebook Marketplace. And then I picked this Lily Wallace fabric to have them recovered. Obviously, this bluish green color is a perfect tie-in to the backsplash here in the kitchen. So this was a really easy project. And again, repurposing something old to give it new life is what I feel so strongly about what makes your house your house. I am a 4th generation Dallasite, which has become rarer and rarer. I love this city. It will always be home to me. And I always say that, like, in my Dallas, all are welcome here. And I hope that everyone who comes to Dallas finds it to be a friendly, welcoming place for people from all walks of life. Dallas is completely over the top. The way I would describe Dallas is that in the too much is never enough in Dallas, right? 10 minutes ago, I had hot rollers in my hair before you got here, which is so Dallas because we really are a bigger the hair, closer to God kind of place. And there's really no too much. You can't be overdressed here. You can't overdo it. If it dips below 70, the minks come out in Dallas. We're like, the one time a year I can wear this? Okay. And I think that, so in the sense that everything's bigger in Texas, that is probably, Dallas is the pinnacle of that in the sense of there is a lot of wealth in this city, but there's also people who love color and really being over the top. And your too much is not too much here. This is my hallway that leads to my bedroom and the guest bedroom as well. So a lot of my favorite art pieces I put here in the hallway. They all have a special meaning to me. I have this paper mache giraffe that I got at John Deerean in New York because I just really like him, especially leading from kind of the Bemelmans elements of the dining room. So he's paper mache. My mom's like, I don't like it, but I do, and it's my house. So that's the good part, right? Is when you're a grown up and you get to just like do whatever you want. Sometimes I can't believe it. So this is my hall closet, and I keep all of my coats and my board games here. I love games, as you know. And even though I'm a Texan, I really love coats. So I have a lot of these what are called quick escape coats that my friend Jennifer, who has a brand called Sweet in New York City, that she makes for me, and I love them very much. That's what I'm wearing today. And then I also love vintage coats. So this is my most recent find here. It also has a little matching shift dress underneath it. I say, like, people always tell me it gives Jackie O First Lady vibes, but I think it gives Commander in Chief. I think that's what it gives. So someday when I run for office, this coat will come back. So here are my coats by Sweet. This I wear a lot. This is so Dallas. This tencel coat here is a very useful thing in my closet because I think it looks cute with jeans, or like over your shoulders for something black tie is really fun. And then she just made me this one because it has the pink and green, which is my favorite color combination. And then she's such a sweet friend that on the inside, she put a little poodle print, and the poodle is saying, "Happy birthday, dear so-and-so," which is just a little tongue-in-cheek, kind of suits my personality. So I love the coats. People always say that this game closet reminds them of the Royal Tenenbaums. There's a scene in the game closet. So that's probably part of where the Town and Country Tenenbaum came from. I did wallpaper the closet. So this wallpaper is by a brand called Flat Vernacular, which is in New York City. The print is called Too Much Stuff, and it has tiny little icons of all sorts of stuff, from like a trick-or-treating pumpkin to a basketball to, you know, hot dog or whatever. And it's really the perfect wallpaper for a closet for a gal with too much stuff. I actually bought it probably 7 years ago when I lived in an apartment because it was a sample sale, and I just love this wallpaper, and I will transport it from apartment to apartment until it finds its landing place, which happened to be a hall closet. So in here we have, this is the guest bathroom here. And I would say when I moved in, it had this very modern Moroccan tile, and this was just white, this vanity, and people would be like, "Oh my gosh, I love this bathroom." And I'd be like, "Thank you, I hate it." It was fine, but it like did not suit the personality of this house. And so this was definitely my version of a non-reno, is making this my own. I'm probably the only person in history who took out the modern tile and actually put in this pink hexagon penny tile in the bathroom, which I love. And similarly with the living room, that I have a black fireplace, I definitely follow the Dorothy Draper philosophy that like a room should have a touch of black as like a grounding source, especially in a really feminine space like mine. I think black is good. And I have the shower has black and white tile in it, so I had to work with that, and ended up doing this Pierre Fry print, which is actually of an Argentinian landscape, but it features a blooming agave, and that reminds me of my family's ranch in the Texas Hill Country. So that's why I chose this fabric. It's a nod to my family and the ranch. So I bought this vintage movie poster. It's from 1957 of a film called Sorority Girl, and I haven't even seen the movie. I'm sure it's like campy and very bad, but I'm kind of your non-typical sorority gal, and so it's definitely just a tongue-in-cheek feature, and I really love the typography in it. And of course the pink and kind of lemonade yellow is a fun color combination, so I like having that in here. I'm always on the hunt for new things. My house is never done. If you came back in 2 months, a lot of things would be different in different locations. So I joke that when I die, I want my things to either be sold at auction at Christie's or for someone to burn all of them, because the idea of like people rifling through all of my treasures and trying to, just see what will go for the most money on eBay, like haunts me and truly tortures me, because I go to a lot of estate sales. I love estate sales and people don't always know how to behave at them. So when I go to an estate sale, I really try to think about the person who lived there, and I never criticize what people buy, because this is, if you go to an estate sale, most likely this person has just passed away. And even if it's not your taste, like this is their life. Like these are their things. These are what they loved and spent money on. And, so I just try to really like think about that and never be critical of what's in someone's home. And when I do buy something from an estate sale, like I don't mean this, I really genuinely mean that like I try to honor the person who this was their thing. And I think it does that by giving it a second life and having that carry on and be beautiful and treasured in my own home. My favorite thing about this home is that everyone who knows me, when they walk in, they say, "It looks like you." And I think that's all anybody ever really wants in their house, is for it not to look like what's trending and as far as home design, or that they, purchased a room, So every time somebody walks in and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's so you." And they don't even know what they mean when they say that. It's just that it encapsulates my personality, and I like that. So this is the primary bedroom, and actually it probably, from a design point of view, doesn't make the most sense to have the bed on this wall, but I absolutely believe in using your home for what works best for you, because you're the one in it. And I love looking at my backyard, laying in bed and waking up in the morning. So that's why the bed is here. And this wallpaper is probably one of my greatest finds ever. So this is a vintage Tebow wallpaper, and I found it on eBay, and there were only 4 rolls listed, and I needed, I think, like 36 rolls probably. There were only 4 listed, and I reached out to the lady to ask if she had any more, and she said she did, and I said, "Okay, well, will you take $200 for all of it?" And so I think I got 36 rolls of Tebow wallpaper for $200. So the actual installation of the wallpaper was a lot more expensive than the wallpaper itself. But since green is my favorite color, obviously magnolias are very southern, and it has a little greenbrier quality to it, being surrounded. But the wallpaper, people ask me about it all the time, and I'm like, Godspeed, because I don't know how I got that deal. But that's kind of the thing. If you see something you really like and you need a higher quantity, just reach out. You never know. This is the Queen of the Castle, lays here. So the needlepoint pillow on my bed, I needlepointed that, the tennis whites required on court. And then I had leftover fabric from the chairs that you saw in the living room, the Schumacher. So that's just another way to use those scraps. Always be sure to ask for the leftovers back, or they will disappear. And I use leftover fabric scraps for all sorts of stuff. I think it's a nice way to like tie in other aspects of your house into different rooms and kind of carry it on. And that contributes to someone walking in and just saying like, "Oh, it feels like you," because they see all these little pieces connect together even without maybe knowing that off the top of their head. So this piece that's next to my bed, A Sullen Child, is a poster. I have a one-woman comedy show. I write and perform nonfiction comedic essays. And before the pandemic, I did this show called A Sullen Child. The origin of that name is that when I was a little girl applying for kindergarten, that's how they described me to my parents, as a sullen child, which of course is like a ridiculous thing to assign to a 6-year-old, but I always knew my whole life I would repurpose that. And having it for a comedy show is kind of perfect. The artwork, so I have a charm bracelet that I love and is important to me. That particular show is stories of girlhood. A lot of times a charm bracelet is the first piece of jewelry a girl receives. So that's why that's the image for that. And actually it was inspired by a 50s Girl Scout handbook. And then each charm on there references something in the story. So again, like someone can just take it at face value of like cool piece of art, but I know every single charm on there references an aspect of the story and, you know, contributes to the whole, which is how I feel about decorating my house too. Like each little thing means something, but the whole picture is you. So I'm proud of that. I'm a collector, as most people who are not minimalist happen to be. And one of the things I love to collect are vintage costume jewelry, mostly from the 60s. So I have a lot of my lovely kind of cocktail rings and earrings, all of which are clips here. And, you know, my various collections of scarves and hats and coffee table books and headbands and, you know, poodle references. And then I have some, you know, vintage luggage that I actually do travel with. I don't know if people think those are props, but I went to Paris in February and that's what I took on the plane, and all the flight attendants were like, "Oh, who designed that retro luggage?" And I'm like, "Oh no, it's just actually old." So it's not vintage inspired, it's just old 1960s luggage. But anyway, yeah. I think from a design perspective, there's not a single person that I look to as far as pulling design inspiration, because it really is just the stories of my life. I am, of course, fascinated by the 1960s, especially the idea of something looking so polished and perfect on the outside, but really that not telling the full picture. And I think that, you know, in 2022 and, you know, what you see on the internet isn't the whole story. Like, people are presenting such beautiful aspects of their lives and even something like this, but there's always going to be a closet full of stuff you didn't want on camera. And I think, you know, that's true of the 1960s. That's true of today. So no, there's not a single person, or definitely not from a design perspective. There's people I look up to, like Nora Ephron is a hero of mine, as someone who's a writer, and she made beloved like rom-coms, like You've Got Mail, that kind of thing. But I really look to people like that. So it's not design necessarily. It's just women who inspire me in general. And I always say that I think of my house as my own rom-com set. And, you know, sometimes there's more com than rom. But yeah, I think of my house as my own little set, and you never know what could unfold. So I have a closet full of things I actually wear on a day-to-day basis. And then I have a pretty closet, and this is the pretty closet of all of my favorite shoes and party dresses. So I'm like queen of the impractical shoe at like at a practical height. So they're all like very impractical shoes, but at practical height, so I actually do wear them. My favorites are probably, I needle pointed these. So those are kind of great. They're Stubbs and Wooten, but I needle pointed them. Actually, I made this shoe and my mom made this shoe, and I sort of like that as I'm walking through life, I've got a little piece of her with me. So those are definitely up there. I can pick favorites with anything. That's like not a challenge for me. So these are probably my favorites right now. These little gold sequin Miu Mius with the pearl. But again, a sensible heel. My family lives on a ranch. I have actual boots that I wear on the ranch that are like made for traipsing through pastures. These are the Dallas boots, which are really for like charity events. So Yeehaws are by a Dallas brand called Mir and Crosby. They make beautiful, fun cowboy boots. These are, I've worn one time, and they were for a like rock and roll themed fundraiser. Highly impressed. Worn once, but you know what? Should the theme arise, I'm ready. And then these are probably my favorite little gold arrow boots they're by Lou Casey. They were inspired by a 1950s pair of cowboy boots. It's getting old, me saying that, huh? Yeah, and all my party dresses, and I collect vintage handbags too. So those are all up there. So I have this big, beautiful, open, bright bathroom with a giant shower, which of course, I'm a bath gal. So that's the way these things go, right? And here I painted these cabinets. They're my favorite shade of green, which is Alligator Alley by Benjamin Moore. If you remember that like famous home tour of Dakota Johnson where she's in her kitchen and she's like, I love limes. I'm obsessed with limes. Her kitchen is painted this color. So you never know, from watching a home tour, you might be like, that's the color. That's the color I want right there. So that's that. And probably the most like nice thing I have in this entire bathroom are these handles, which were like hand forged by a bronzista in Florence. I didn't know that was a word. And I love them because they also look like ribbons. So it's a contrast between those are really nice and were like the fanciest thing I put in here. And then these mirrors are from Target. So it's definitely a blend of terms of just like what you love. So again, Target mirrors. This heart chair is from a 1940s French patio set. I actually have 3 of them, and I am still on the hunt for the 4th chair and the matching table. So this is just the thing about searching for things from the past that you absolutely love. I've gotten the chairs 1 off, so I've accumulated 3, and I have to get the 4th and the table. So someday, I think I set an eBay alert and for 2 years before the first chair popped up, so you never know. This is my tiny little guest room, and it used to be my office. I actually flip-flopped the rooms because, again, this was more functional for how I actually use my house, and it ended up being such a cozy, charming little space. So I put up removable grass cloth wallpaper, which I actually installed myself. It's very easy, and I think, you know, it added a lot of color to this room here. So the interesting thing about this room is absolutely everything in here besides the wallpaper is secondhand. So I've sourced things from Goodwill and Salvation Army and things from my childhood home, or obviously plenty of thrift stores and junk stores all over the place. So I really liked that everything in here was secondhand, and everything from these drapes I found, these, I love a chintzy drape, and these were from Goodwill. So I got the 2 panels for like $8, I think, total there. And this is a Henredon side table that I got at Salvation Army for $30. The mirror I got from my favorite thrift store, which is my storage unit. And yeah, all the plates are from Goodwill and Salvation Army. And so it's just a really cozy little guest room. I think probably my favorite thing in here is this Korean secretary that I just found at Salvation Army, and it's hand painted, and I love to write letters. I started a little pen pal program with all my nice girlfriends on Instagram. There's like, I think I matched 350 people with pen pals, and really all over the world. So that's been really nice to hear people make friends with their pen pals. But I keep all of my letter writing stuff in here. I have a wax seal, so I actually will, melt different waxes and use my little wax seal. So I love to write letters, and I keep all of my letter writing stuff in here. It even has a little secret compartment down there. I don't have the full history on this piece, but how it is and all the little locks and keys, I feel like it was on a ship because of how everything is enclosed. So I've done my research and still trying to solve it, but that's probably my favorite new thing I bought. New old thing. I just flip-flopped my office and my guest room. This is now going to become my office. You cannot see the rest of the room because it's where everything is shoved that doesn't have a home yet. But I think probably my favorite feature that's going to be in my office is this is what I call my ephemera wall. Ephemera meaning something that was just supposed to be temporary that I want to give a longer life to. So, there's a ticket stub from my first concert to NSYNC in 1999 that was sponsored by Clairol's Herbal Essences, to little notes from my parents, or napkins from my favorite places, and yeah, just anything someone has written me that is sweet, and I just love to tack it up here on the wall. Little Polaroids or ticket stubs, postcards. Yeah, it just inspires me of all the things I love. The word home means to me, I think being surrounded by all the things that I love, and if it can't be full of the people that I love because they live in a different place, that their presence is here, and there are things that remind me of them here, things that belong to them here. So to me, that's, home will always just be a place where I feel the safe space. And I've always really liked being surrounded by my things. My mom would say that when I was, you know, before I even learned to walk, when I was just crawling, that if she would turn around for 2 seconds, I'd be trying to crawl up the stairs to go be in my room by myself with my stuff. Like, I like building my surrounding and have this be my safe space.
Hey Homeworthy, I'm Alex. Welcome to my Upper Side apartment. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
I'm Alex Wilson. I'm an interior decorator in New York City, and we're at my apartment on the Upper East Side. My interior design style is, I would say, rooted in tradition and, you know, neoclassical, you know, background. But I think definitely I am a big fan of color. I'm a big fan of pattern. I love to use them in all my projects, but judiciously. I'm a big fan of green, if you can't tell. I love the, you know, mixing of old pieces, new pieces, you know, antiques, mid-century, you know, even the sofas from CB2. So it's all about how you use things and, you know, the context in which you use them. So someone recently said to me that they thought that my apartment was a maximalist, minimalist apartment. And I would never have thought of that myself, but I kind of thought that it was an interesting way to look at it. We are in the foyer of my apartment, which is small but mighty. I started with this wall fabric from Claire Louise Frost, which I had used on a project, but had always been obsessed with and had wanted to use it in another application. And it felt like the right time to go for it. And I also got the opportunity to use one of my favorite colors, which is aubergine, which if you look in the fabric, there's a small stripe that introduces that color. So I used that on the doors, baseboard, casing, crown, which is Pharaoh and Ball brinjal. And what I really like about decorating, or one thing I always try to do in a project, is have there be a thread that carries you through every room of the house. So while all the rooms might be different, there's something consistent throughout that sort of connects the dots as you go through that makes it feel cohesive and not a little bit scattered. This mirror is from Lulu in Georgia, I believe, and I thought it was a nice counterpoint towards the more not traditional fabric on the walls, but, you know, neoclassical with the Greek tea, and it felt sort of like a nice juxtaposition with that element. And then the lantern is from Hector Finch and is sort of a, you know, streamlined modern version of a traditional classic lantern. These paintings, there used to be a thrift over on the west side at one of the piers. It was called like Big Thrift or Big, you know, Vintage or something like that. And I found those there, and they are old. They are English country seats, and we have Castle Cool, Nether Hall, and Oxley Manor. I would say be confident in what you like. What you like is what you like. And, you know, I think having confidence in what interests you and appeals to you is, you know, more important than, you know, thinking about a trend or what's popular. Now we're in the living room of my apartment, which, you know, mostly serves as a living room, but also doubles down as more of the foyer space because the actual foyer is so small, you can't really have a table. So this is where I have sort of the entry console where you drop your keys, your mail, and then also the dining table, which is mostly a console, but it, you know, that has leaves that fold out when you have people over and you know, want to have a dinner party. The console was found by Ashley Whitaker, and she brought it up to our old office. And when I was decorating the apartment, I brought it over here, and it was the perfect, you know, thing that I needed because it's not too deep. It's a true console in that it only has 2 legs. A console table has 4 legs, but a console has 2. And Yeah, it's great, and it's sort of carries on the neoclassical motif with the Greek key from the foyer wall fabric, which was, you know, inadvertent, but. And then I have got this photograph by Jason Frank Rothenberg, which is from Sears Payton Gallery down on 11th Avenue, and they are one of my favorite galleries in New York. They represent a lot of artists that you know, do different mediums, and I was always very enamored by this piece because it's very pretty, but it's also a little bit ugly. It's a little bit moody. It sort of brings you in, and you know, it's inviting, but also a little bit scary. The shells are cool, but it's great. So I recently got this from them, and it's one of my favorite things in the apartment. This is you might notice as we go through, I have a collection of camels. My dad and I both are collectors of camel things, whether it's statues, sculptures, whatever. So this is a leather Moroccan camel. And then this is a very neat, you know, ashtray cashpo catch-all from a friend of mine, Julia Ferentinos, who has a company called Juju Vera Vintage, and it is a, you know, reinterpretation of the Roman floor tiles that had trash as you would have thrown it out, which was sort of an indication of your, you know, wealth back in the Roman days. So she, you know, reinvented that as a, you know, brass moment, which is very, very pretty, which I love. I've got a lot of books, and my brother actually gave me these, which is the Treasury of American Design, and then the Dictionary of English Furniture came from my aunt, who was, you know, a very important figure in my life and was also a decorator. Now we are at my fireplace, which is, you know, a very important part of the room because, you know, not many apartments in New York have a working fireplace. And initially all of the trim was white, and the sort of at the time it seemed very ugly, this brown, not even brown, it's like sort of terracotta red, but is it a marble, is it a granite? Unclear. It was very, very ugly, and painting it green unintentionally made the marble like stand out less and sort of appear less unattractive, which I love. And then I have got a sort of mild, you know, fascination. I'm a big collector of things, boxes, camels, ashtrays, but I also love Egyptian things, so a big fan of Egyptomania. So I've got these bookends that I got from Avery and Dash, which are of Sphinx, and then this is a ink blotter that has got scarabs on it. So it's pretty cool. And then this, interestingly, is a pencil drawing from an architect firm that built my great-grandparents' house in North Carolina. The architecture firm was Myers, Murray, and Phillip, which was New York-based. I don't think that they are still active. A picture of my mother on a motorcycle in a barn in Millbrook. A picture of me judging her. And my mother recently told me that grasshoppers by your fireplace hearth was good luck, so I have a brass little grasshopper. And then another Egyptian moment is this. I think it actually once was a thermometer, but the parts were taken out, so it's just kind of a cool little obelisk that's got hieroglyphs and whatnot. So I chose a green grass cloth for the walls. And I think initially it started with, I had always wanted a, you know, at the time, you know, pea green velvet sofa. And inevitably, or eventually, I think that sort of evolved into, you know, olive green walls, olive green velvet sofa. And I really thought that it felt cozy and inviting, almost sort of like a study or a library might, but still, you know, captures the light, and there's a good reflection off of the grass cloth, and it gives you a good texture. I'm a big fan of wallpaper. I rarely ever have just a painted wall in a project. So I'm a big proponent of, when in doubt, wallpaper it. And the grass cloth is great because it gives you the opportunity to do something and bring color in, but also not such a pattern commitment as I do have in other rooms of my apartment. So this is a vintage sort of pretzel rattan stool that I reupholstered in a Muriel Brandolini fabric that has since been discontinued on this chartreuse ground, but it has got these really pretty butterflies on it, which I also used on a lampshade over there. But I love a butterfly on a fabric. I don't know why, but there's something very playful about them, and it gives you the opportunity for pattern, but it's just kind of a fun little moment to have on this, rattan stool. And then this is a piece that I got at auction through Camelot in Philadelphia. And I knew that I wanted a TV. I love television. I love TV. But I didn't really want it to be mounted on the wall. And I wasn't really going to go through the exercise of doing a proper built-in. So I knew I needed something that could hold books and act as a bookcase while still sort of concealing the TV and giving it a moment to get off a wall or off a flat surface like a console or something like that. And it's great. I mean, it's a perfect piece because it gives you sort of display moments, but also gives me book storage, and I can kind of display all my trinkets and collections and things, which I love. And up here is actually a really fun malachite faux painted box that I got at a designer yard sale in Millbrook from Thomas Preston, who's a wonderful designer and antiques dealer who has the best stuff. This floor lamp is from him, and then I've got one other thing from him behind me. But some mushrooms, snails, and then this is a bust of my great-grandfather, who unfortunately for him, he got a little bit of a broken nose while in transit from North Carolina. So unfortunate, but it's kind of fun. And there's a little bit of a story there, which I think is kind of, fun to tell at a parties, because people always ask what happened to him. And then this is the, floor lamp from Thomas Preston. It's kind of a fun, modern, mid-century, Italian or French maybe, floor lamp. But it's nice to sort of not, I always love a lampshade, because it gives you another opportunity for a fabric and a pattern, but I think this is kind of nice because it also emits a nice, really soft glow. And this chair was something I had at my old apartment. It was a pair, and they were a gift for my birthday from my mother. And I reupholstered this one, and this was sort of beyond the green velvet sofa, green grass cloth walls. This was sort of the decorating route, because you can kind of pull so many colors from a floral, because you've got brown, you've got olive green, you've got, peacocky Prussian blue, light blue, lavender. It is sort of where you're able to pull all the different colors and sort of make a fun scheme that, makes it all make sense and be cohesive. This is actually a stool that I recently got from Creel and Gow in Millbrook. It's a, gold painted tree stump, which I think is kind of fun. So you've got the gold moment, but it's also sort of, natural and rustic in that it's a tree stump. And the series here is actually one of the first things that I bought for this apartment beyond, decorating sort of fabric, wallpaper, things like that. It is a series of Zodiac prints by Salvador Dali. And it's a second issue of this series that I think came out in 1969. And the first series was in 1967, and they were probably about double the size. I found it on Cherish, believe it or not, and I had it saved, and I knew, that I wanted it, but didn't really have a place for it, or, did not have an end location for them, and was lucky that it was still available. And I've only ever seen one other set of these prints, which I think is kind of interesting. But I like that I truthfully was not aware of this, but he's most known for sort of the, melting clocks and the stairs and sort of the more stereotypical Dali, but I did not know he, painted this, which I find to be, very interesting. There's a lot of color, and he had sort of fun interpretations of some of these zodiacs. Like, for instance, I think the crab is actually a lobster, so that's kind of a different, Dali take on it, which I think is kind of interesting. And the sofa I bought from CB2, and I had reupholstered, and I kind of like doing things like that. Sometimes when, the budget doesn't allow for, a custom piece of furniture, there are ways around it. So I bought the sofa from CB2, had it reupholstered, and had new, back cushions made to kind of make it feel a little bit more custom. And the nice part about this is that because it's a 1-bedroom apartment, this can serve as a, guest bed for, people who spend the night when you need it. So it's kind of a fun sofa, and it's very deep and very comfortable, so it's easy to sink in and not get out. This is a coffee table that was a gift from my old boss friend, Ashley Whitaker. It's a tortoise lacquered coffee table, and the size is really great because sometimes if I'm having people over for dinner and I don't want to deal with pulling out my dining table and kind of rearranging all of that, you can easily sit, 6 people around this, and it's kind of, a little bit more casual and fun. And I've got, another camel, some Chris Spitzmiller candlesticks. I love a very crazy, weird orchid. There's a great florist around the corner called Eros who's got, the best, the chicest flowers, orchids, things like that. So he's always kind of got a very dramatic moment for me, which I really love. And then, just some fun, a matchbox, some malachite, a lighter case from my friend Julia, a marble ashtray, and just some various books, magazines. I'm a big believer in print, so I love to read magazines. I still rip out pages and make tear sheets and keep them all, so I'm very old school in that way. And this is a fun Danish armchair that I reupholstered in a Schumacher fabric, and I really like, the expected thing would be to kind of put it in a boucle or a solid fabric, but I love to, upholster sort of a more modern or, not traditional piece in a fabric that is a little bit more unexpected, which I kind of find to be fun and exciting, and just mix it up a little bit. I've never been a fan of sort of, only neutral interiors, and I think that neutral interiors can be very chic and very interesting, but it's about making them sort of a combination of materials and fabrics and textures and things like that, as opposed to sort of the, big box neutral trend, which I think was sort of very prominent in, grays, and sort of appealing to a lot of, different people who might not know what their interests are. This is a portrait of my aunt who I've mentioned, and it's kind of a little bit ridiculous because this is her debutante oil portrait. So they did not have cameras back in I would say probably 62. So they, had their portraits done, which is kind of bougie and fabulous and absurd, and that's what I kind of like about it. And I also like that she looks a little bit pissed to be there. So I kind of, you've got a portrait which is, has a certain vibe, but I like that it's got a, she's off-put and she's uncomfortable and she's mad, and I love that about it because she was not exactly like that. And then this is where I've got my dining table, which is, an English sort of style dining table that has leaves and it folds out. So I've got dining chairs scattered around the apartment, but it mostly serves as a bar and a place for a lamp, and kind of just another way to display, collections of things. And this camel is from Thomas Preston, and it is a pair of camels that I believe are, Italian 19th century Grand Tour camels. He told me they came from a collector in LA, but my dad has one and I have the other, so it's kind of fun. So he's got the, the dad camel, I've got the baby camel. And, again, more of the butterfly fabric, which I love, and, a knockoff of a Giacometti style lamp. And then here we've got one of my dining chairs. There's a couple others spread out in my bedroom, but they were Queen Anne style chairs from my grandmother that I had, chippy whited, and they're from the 40s, back when sort of reproductions were quality. And, picked a fun aubergine leather, which I think sort of brightens it up and makes it a little bit more fun and youthful. I am from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and was raised by parents who were into architecture and decorating and antiques. So I had a sort of upbringing inadvertently around all that sort of stuff. and my aunt, who is sort of, you know, if you've ever seen the movie Auntie Mame, she's Mame, I'm Patrick, and she was a decorator and, you know, did all the homes I grew up in. So I was raised, you know, in that environment, and eventually I went to College of Charleston and studied historic preservation, and have always loved old buildings, architecture, historic houses, and so on and so forth. And eventually made my way to New York and worked for Ashley Whitaker for 8 years, who, you know, similarly loves, you know, classical architecture, neoclassicism, color, pattern. And for the last year, I've had my own design firm in New York. I'm gonna show you my kitchen that I got renovated before I moved in. So this was a, you know, very small kitchen for a woman who lived here and did not cook before I owned the apartment. And it, you know, had a tiny, tiny stove, tiny, tiny sink, didn't have a dishwasher. It was all, you know, it was a hot mess. And I ripped everything out and kind of started over from new, but kept the appliances in the same place so as not to have to relocate the gas lines and the water lines and things like that. And the thing you probably noticed first is the pattern on the walls in Roman shade, which is from, it's an old Alan Campbell pattern that is from Quadrille. So when I worked for a Quadrille many years ago, I'd always been obsessed with this pattern and, you know, had envisioned it being covered in a, you know, covering a pool house, walls, curtains, sofas, all the, you know, the whole 9 yards. So this is my pool house, but my kitchen in New York. And I really thought it was an opportunity to go for it. And the ceilings are very, you know, weird in here. There's a bunch of soffits that kind of go different directions. And because there's no crown, you know, when there is no crown, I always like to continue the wallpaper, but there wasn't a logical place to stop, and it almost made you kind of have to keep going. And it turned out really fun. I mean, it's a little zoomy, but it's, you know, I think it's fun, and it's sort of a little bit of a departure from the rest of my apartment, but sort of in keeping in that it's, you know, patterned and a little bold, and, you know, it's fun. I love it in here. And then I did the same fabric on the Roman shade, which is only lined, which kind of lets in a little bit of the light, which is nice. These are really fun. I recently started collecting onion bulb vases. I found one at a thrift store and thought it was just sort of weird and, you know, ugly, but also kind of cool. They're kind of a fun way to, you know, do a bud vase, which is kind of fun. And I've got, you know, daffodils in there. And then I just have some kind of, you know, art. I bought this at Stair Gallery recently. That's actually from a magazine that I ripped out, and I bought that online. And this is another Dali print that is from, like, I think it's from a book that he did, but it's the Lorelei. And again, he's got butterflies, and, you know, it's sort of a little bit less surrealist than sort of what you think of when you think of Dali in terms of, you know, melting clocks and stairs and, you know, that sort of stuff. But another sort of modern, you know, piece of art, which I like given the black and white wallpaper and, you know, Roman shade fabric. It's kind of fun to keep the modern going, but with color, which, you know, you also get from this bowl, which I got from March in San Francisco, and then this ice bucket, which is Fratelli Fanciulli, which is an Italian ceramic company, probably from the 70s. I didn't want a, you know, traditional Upper East Side kitchen, you know, obviously you can see the wallpaper, but so I did glossy lacquered millwork cabinets, which in hindsight are, you know, a little bit hard to keep clean, especially in a small kitchen in New York. But I thought it was sort of a nice juxtaposition to the, you know, more traditional apartment, and kind of have more modern black oil rub bronze pulls. Last but not least, let's go to my bedroom. So we're in my bedroom, which is sort of like my kitchen, mostly black and white. And the wallpaper was one of the early decisions. It is a sort of trompe l'oeil brick set style masonry wallpaper from Casablanca. And I like that it gives architectural interest. It gives, you know, sort of a building block to work off of while not being colorful and, still somewhat neutral. So it gave me the opportunity to, use some other colors and not have a, overly powerful bedroom, but kind of keeping it a little bit, somewhat serene. I don't know if everybody would call this serene, but it's calm to me. Leopard carpet from Stark. So this is the old school Folsom from Stark, which I love. And it really, honestly, it is a neutral to me. I love leopard, and I think it's a great carpet to use, and it feels very Upper East Side to me. And here we have a dresser from, I think it's actually from Crate and Barrel, but I took the knobs off and replaced them with brass ones, which I think is a fun way to, take a catalog piece or something that is readily available and not that expensive and kind of change it for you and kind of, make it a little bit more yours, but also at the same time upgrade a little bit. These are 2 snake prints I got from KRB, which are actually Ophiology prints, and I bought those a long time ago, probably about 5 years ago, and I'm a big fan of, if there's something you like and you maybe don't have a home for it, but you love it, get it. You'll find something to do with it later and you'll have a home for it and you'll be able to use it and you'll always regret not having bought it. And then these are mushroom prints, or I think mycology is the technical term, but I love, mushrooms, snails, snakes. I kind of find them to be, a little bit weird, but also sort of interesting because they have fun colors, fun shapes, a little bit of pattern to them. And a Christopher Spitzmiller lamp. No home is complete without one. And a mirror I actually found in Florida, which is kind of, it's a starburst mirror and it's just as pretty. And I liked it and it kind of felt, at home here with this mirror that is from maybe CB2. But it's a nice, the juxtaposition of the two together, I think, is kind of fun. And, got some more boxes, lapis lazuli and some books. And this actually was my aunt's crystal ball. So when she, passed, I brought it home with me. I think, she used to put it out when the moon was full. This is a fun leopard head that I bought at auction from Stair. I think it actually came from the home of Pat Altschul, decorated by Mario Buwata, but it's kind of just, I don't know, it's fun and I love leopards and it just felt like something I needed. So you might notice I have a few pairs of Vans. So I'm a true Van addict. I probably have, I think, 60 pairs of Vans in every color. Embarrassingly, this is not all of them. There are more in my storage box downstairs, but I don't know, they're fun and it's, I wear Belgian loafers and Vans, so I opted to have the volume be occupied by the less expensive option. I have got a dresser over here no, it's not by anybody, but it was from my grandmother, my mom's mother, and it came from her house in Tennessee. And these are, my bedside table lamps are, Michael Taylor style plaster spiral lamps, and I did a lavender cotton scent shade on them, so it's a fun sort of match myself, but I love lavender and it's kind of a fun, color to, bring in here from my living room. And then the headboard Luther Quintana made, and I think I saw a picture of a guest bedroom or a boys' bedroom by Brian McCarthy in Southampton that had sort of a pediment style headboard, and I held on to that tear sheet for years. So when it came time to, get a bed headboard for myself, I imagined one for myself inspired by that, which is kind of, it's fun. It feels also classical, sort of, temple form, but then with the wallpaper, it sort of carries the neoclassical vibes through into my bedroom. And I did a bed skirt because I needed the storage. And, most people, poo-poo a bed skirt, but if you make it really tailored and keep it really neat and clean, it's a great, way to be able to store stuff under your bed. And I have a lot of clothes, so you always are, needing to access that sort of stuff. I've got a desk over here from Camelot, which is an auction house in Philadelphia, sort of a Janssen style 1940s desk. And the room was a little bit, the wall where the headboard goes is like a little bit too big for bedside tables. I already had this dresser that I knew I needed to use, one from storage and two because, you know, it came from my grandmother. So it's a nice way to, you know, have it be a little bit less, you know, bedside table, and, you know, mix up the arrangement, but gives me a place to do a little bit of work and, you know, I'll fill in the scale of the room proportionally a little bit better with, you know, the dresser on the other side of the room. This is a piece of art that I inherited from my aunt. It is an artist, Lincoln Seligman, and it came from Gerald Bland Gallery, who is a, you know, very, very well-known antique dealer on 59th Street. And I like that it sort of doesn't really have much to do with, you know, the colors in my bedroom, which for art, I'm not a big fan of, you know, does the artwork go with, you know, the color story or the scheme? I think the art's the art, and if you love it, put it in the room, and it doesn't need to match or correspond. If it does, great, coincidence. But I just kind of love that, you know, it's got orange. I don't have any orange in my apartment, and I actually tend not to decorate with any orange. These are prints from Jim Thompson. My grandmother traveled throughout Asia, and she brought those back, and I think that my mom had them, and I think when I moved to New York, they were just, you know, available to me for something to go on the wall. But, you know, it's funny, when I brought them to Los Angeles, I had no idea who Jim Thompson was. And then now, interestingly, you know, Jim Thompson was you know, he's a fabrics, you know, man and has a showroom now, but it just isn't, it's sort of, you know, serendipity, I guess. And then this is just a fun piece that I got in Miami, just, you know, the antithesis of what I was just saying about art not matching a scheme. This does just that. But I thought it was fun. It's a great scale. You know, it wasn't too expensive. And, you know, at the time when I didn't have a lot of other art, it was a great, you know, occupier of a wall and brought in some color. Home to me means comfort, surrounded by the things you love, the things you cherish, the things you collect, you know, and that could be anything. But I think that home really is about, you know, being the most comfortable in your space and in your environment.
Today on Homeworthy, we're spending the day in Brooklyn, New York, touring the home of interior designer Erin Fearens. Erin, an avid collector, and her husband, an architect, have spent the last 15 years crafting a family home that's whimsical and eclectic, while also tackling the unique challenges of city living by creating beautiful storage solutions. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Erin. Welcome to my Brooklyn home. Come on in. Hi, I'm Erin Fearens, and welcome to my home. We're in Cobble Hill, and I live here with my husband Jesse and our two children Willa and Avery and our dog Dolly. And I want to show you around. I just wanted to start in our entry here. One of the things we really wanted to do with this entry is to create a space that feels like its own area, because with this apartment there are a lot of spaces that sort of bleed into one another. So we decided to wallpaper just this zone and treat it a little bit differently than the rest of the living room and kitchen that it kind of opens up into. We just wanted it to feel like a special arrival point, because so many apartments don't have a real foyer or a real arrival moment, and I think that's such an important thing to have as you are entering a home, to really feel like you are meant to go into this area in this zone. One of the things that's really important for us is storage, so we've managed to hide a huge closet here behind this big wall door that houses all of our coats and scooters and shoes and stuff like that. And you would never know it was here. So it's one of the things that's really important in this apartment with 4 people. Even though it's a 3-bedroom, it's sort of a small apartment since we're in New York. So we've really managed to try to hide as much storage as possible throughout. And I'll show you some of those areas. I love objects and accessories. I'm kind of a maximalist. And so even though this is a functional area, I still have to have little things everywhere. So I collect brass animals, so I have a little brass deer here and then one hidden in the floor. We try to kind of have fun with our accessories. I have these cool vintage hat racks that we got that are shaped like brass ducks. I love this piece. This is a Mario Lopez Torres piece. This cool designer, and they make these, they're mostly objects that look like animals, so I love this snake hat rack as well. We're definitely animal lovers. I love this paper. I just think it's so whimsical and sort of 60s. There's something that's just kind of funky about it. I love the overscale quality of it. And you'll see there's a theme of animals throughout this whole apartment. Now I'm going to take you to our living room. So as you can see, it's just this sort of open space right off of the foyer, and our kitchen is adjacent to this space as well. We've got a lot of stuff in here. We're collectors at heart. We love to travel and we love to pick things up everywhere we go. So all of this art and all of the objects have a story to us that is really special. So those are things that just make us happy every day when we're living here in this space. A couple of the pieces that we have in here are vintage and fun finds that we have kind of come across along the way. So this sofa is the only sofa that would actually fit up the stairs to this apartment, because even though it's really long, it's like 11 feet long, it's in 2 pieces. And this is a piece that I found on eBay, believe it or not, and we had the seat cushions reupholstered because they were pretty tattered. It's definitely from the 70s and has the original 70s print on the back and the frame. But this thing has been really well loved, and my kids fall asleep on this on a regular basis. This is another piece that I got at auction. It's this cool chinois kind of frame. Definitely a little rough around the edges, but I like the wear on it. I like that it's not perfect. And we reupholstered the top in a cool Joseph Frank print. It also, for many years, housed lots of Legos inside of this because there's like a cavity inside that holds whatever you want. We definitely don't prescribe to a certain style. We really just kind of gravitate toward things that we like. Like, we are mixing mid-century with things that are definitely of an older era and things that are brand new. So I think, to me, it's just, if it speaks to us in a certain way, then we feel like that's okay to have in our home. And I like that it feels like an expression of us rather than an expression of a particular style. So another trick that we often use in our work is layering, and this is a good example because this is a room that is hard to define since it sort of blends into our kitchen. So we decided to do a really large neutral area rug that starts to define the space as a whole, and then I've layered a smaller decorative Turkish rug on top that I found at an antique store in my hometown, actually, and the colors worked out beautifully. But I think that it starts to define this as a separate zone rather than this dining area. So there are tricks that are being played to start to create spaces within spaces. So I love the idea of gallery walls anywhere I can fit them. And this is a wall that's evolved a lot since we've lived here. And I found that I was just collecting all of these sort of smaller pieces that didn't quite have real homes. So I thought it would be nice to kind of put them all together. A lot of these things are really special to us. They're things that we've picked up on travels or pieces that our friends have painted for us. They're all really meaningful. And I just literally one Saturday laid all this stuff out on the floor and kind of took a picture of how I thought it would work and then just started hammering it into the walls, and it worked out. So I don't think that gallery walls are as scary as they might seem to be. I think, to me, it's just, if you love the pieces, they're all going to go together because they're all a reflection of who you are. So I also love butterflies, and my friends know this. So I've collected these species for a number of years, and then this one was given to me by my dear friend. So these are all things that are really meaningful to me. We also picked up this pair of little frogs in Paris a couple of years ago, and I just saw them in the window and had to have them. So this piece is something I got at auction many years ago, and it wasn't really something that stylistically I had pieces that felt like this, but there's something that just spoke to me about this. I love this creature. I love the tree. I think it's so beautiful. It's like vaguely chinois, but it's also a little, I don't know, it has a different kind of flair. And then these are pieces that we just collected. I literally found this on the street and I thought it was the coolest thing, so I picked it up. But the rest of these pieces are, like, this is a dear friend of mine who lives in Toronto, who does beautiful, beautiful drawings and paintings. And then a couple of other things. This is a piece that always hung in my mom and dad's room, and I used to fly kites with my dad a lot. And they live on a farm in Tennessee, and they also rebuilt windmills. So there's something like so specific about this piece that it's like super special to me. We built this at the same time that we did our kitchen, and this wall was before it was just this big brick blank wall. And again, just like having storage is so important. So we have these really deep cabinets that house records and serving pieces. And then on this side, it's a hidden bar. So we have glassware and liquor, and underneath here is our radiator. So this cane does a dual purpose where it's decorative, but it also actually allows the heat to come out. Another thing that I love is that behind this television, we've carved out more storage for china and serving pieces that we don't use all the time, but that I want to have access to, and you kind of would never know it's there. So I grew up in East Tennessee in a really small town called Greenville, and my dad was a furniture maker, and his shop was literally through the back behind our house through a field. So I would spend after school and summers sweeping sawdust and helping him build things, or mostly just gluing things together. But just being able to go with him and see houses and see things that he was installing for people at that time, I was so interested in how other people live and so interested to see how people set their homes up. So I think it was just from that exposure that I became really fascinated, and it's just been kind of a lifelong interest for me. I went to school at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville in the interior design department. It was through the architecture department, so I got to know a lot of architects very well during that time. That's how I met my husband, actually, who's an architect. And after graduation, I worked in Nashville for a number of years at Bradford's. And then we moved to New York thinking we'd be here for maybe 3 years, and it's been almost 20 years now that we've been here. I think we just always felt like we would probably move back south, but we really just love it here, and we're able to travel and make this our home base. And I think that because of that, it's been such a great place to kind of grow and raise a family, and we're all really happy here. This is a really small little dining area that we've carved out of the corner of our living room, and we really do have dinner here every night. It's a super comfortable place for four to sit. We really tried to create a space with its own identity. We've done a completely different wallpaper here, and I have this collection of lusterware and stoneware that I've collected over the years that are on the walls, along with some art that I really love. This is a super functional space for us. This table is actually kind of perfect here because it's a big dining table in the middle of the room in a way, but the fact that it's glass with lucite base, this is this kind of 70s base that we found, it doesn't feel like this massive thing. So I think that it really does its job well here to not feel like a big clunky piece in the corner. I love lower level lighting, so we have a lot of table lamps and floor lamps throughout this apartment. In a lot of cases there aren't even ceiling lights, but I prefer that because in most of our work we really rely on lower level lighting just because it feels really sparkly and comfortable, and it's sort of flattering to be around. So this is an area where we installed 2 sconces, And I got these beautiful Fermois shades to put on them. And these are some antlers that my father-in-law gave me for Christmas because he knows I like things like that. So I thought they were kind of cool propped there. These are these cool ex voto pieces that we got in Rome. And they're these little silver things, and the history of these is that they're so cool. Like that one's lungs. I just think they're so cool, and I want to start a collection of these things because I think they're so beautiful. We moved into this apartment in 2016 and rented it for about 4 years, and then bought it and have started to kind of do things to it every summer when our kids are off with their grandparents in Maryland. So it's been sort of this constant renovation stage that we've been in, but I think it's pretty much done. Definitely collectors at heart. Me more so than my husband. I grew up in East Tennessee and am the daughter of two very avid collectors. My husband's an architect, and this place is definitely a collaboration. The objects and the style is maybe a little bit more me, but the sort of brilliance of the built-ins and the millwork is definitely him. It's been a great collaboration to kind of come up with spaces together. So this is our kitchen that we renovated a couple of years ago, and we really needed to kind of make sure we're maximizing storage everywhere we could. So we did take the cabinets all the way to the ceiling, and we really just tried to carve out as much possible storage as we can anywhere. This zone is kind of meant to be a little bit more of a bar setup because it's the kind of connector piece between this dining room area. So we'll often set this up like a bar, but this is drawers. We're housing more china. I have china everywhere. I'm obsessed with it. And drawers are such a good way to house big bulky things too. Like in this one, I have, like an air fryer and a mixer and a Vitamix. So it's so much easier to get things out of big drawers than doors. So we'll often use them in our renovations. So on this side, we have drawers again for plates and cookware and pots and pans. We really tried to hide as much as we can. So while the refrigerator is the only thing that's exposed, everything else is behind cabinet doors, just to kind of create more uniformity. This is the dishwasher. So it's hidden behind a panel door. And I think it's like, sight lines are really important, so being able to see from the living room into this space, we just wanted this to be sort of as done and beautiful as possible. I chose a really dark color for the cabinetry just because I wanted it to feel less kitchen-like. I wanted it to feel a little bit more like a bar because it's quite small, but we cook a lot in here. It's really functional. I think having things so close sort of makes it work better sometimes. We decided to use a stone counter, and we used it on the backsplash as well, just again for that sense of uniformity, creating a space that feels a little bit bigger. We really are treating this space like almost like a bar. We wanted it to feel more bar-like than kitchen-like, since it's this interior sort of darker space. And we really just like the idea of making it feel like a jewel box, and we're hanging art and this beautiful Portuguese tiled plaque, and I like to kind of have things propped up and placed in here so that it's functional, but it could also be really beautiful at all times. This rug is one that was found at auction, and my friend actually bought it, and it didn't work in her hall, and was like, I would love to buy that rug from you because I have the perfect spot for it. I love these things. So these are some candles that we sell at our shop, and they're Italian, and so this is meant to look like a big panettone, but it's a candle. And then also this is a candle, this donut, and this tiny macaron is a candle. These are real food though. And then my son made this, which I think is so cute because he called it, this is his little art tag. It's called Strawberry Banana Explosion. I was working at a larger studio in Brooklyn for many years, and in 2020, two of my closest friends and colleagues there, we decided that it was time to kind of branch out, and we created another firm where we're really focusing on architecture and interiors at the same time. It's of equal importance. And our firm is called Studio SFW, and we focus primarily on residential design, and we really try to bring functional, beautiful, fun spaces to all of our projects. We really listen to our clients, and I think in the same way that this apartment is an expression of me, we try to make all of our clients' homes an expression of who they are. Digging deep to figure out those things that make them tick and those things that make them feel happy are one of our biggest goals. And when we get it right, it's amazing because they say that their lives are changed, and it's an incredible experience to kind of help someone through that. So before we go into our bedroom, I just want to point out another hidden storage element here. This is our pantry, because our kitchen's so small, we really need space that's overflow for that. But it's nice that it's completely hidden in this little wall door here. This is probably the quietest space of our apartment. It's this long hallway going back bedroom, but we still love rugs. This is a fun Moroccan rug that I found at a local shop in Brooklyn. And this is a de Gournay wallpaper panel that I've had this since I was in Nashville. I've just had this forever, and I love their paper. Maybe one day this whole hallway will be de Gournay, but for now it's just this panel. So this is a cool pendant. It's newly made, but it's meant to be based on something from like the 30s. It's just a fun sunburst shape. It's a nice element in this hallway. Creates a little bit more of a room feeling, and otherwise just a passage. I'll take you into our bedroom now. So again, this is a little bit of a tight space. There are a couple of tricks that we have incorporated here with mirror to try to bounce light around and make it feel a little bit brighter. So this is this cool vintage bed that I found in Florida, and I love it. And it has this fun mirrored ceiling that does this amazing thing about bouncing the light from the window. It makes this feel 2 times as tall in here, and I love the effect of it. The other thing I wanted to point out is a lot of storage that we have built into this bedroom. So this whole thing was added and really just takes the place of any kind of storage furniture that we would need. It's basically a huge dresser for us, big open shelves, and then things up above that, suitcases, things like that you don't really need to get to very often can go up there. But we've really just tried to carve out as much storage as we can in this small space. So this is another trick with mirror. We installed these kind of antiqued mirror tiles behind this frame TV because I really like the depth that it creates. It's another one of those areas that starts to bounce light around in a way. And in a room like this, it's dark, intentionally dark. We painted it this beautiful Banca green from Farrow and Ball. I love this color, but it's meant to feel really cozy in here, but in cozy spaces you also want to have a little bit of sparkle. So I think that this mirror on the wall behind this niche does a great trick in allowing for that. This is one of my favorite pieces. This is a quilt that my great aunt Gladys made. She's been a lifelong avid quilter and just passed away a couple of years ago, so we have a huge collection of her pieces, and this one's just really special to me. I love the colors. I love this Lone Star pattern. She was really talented. So in the evenings, this is a really cozy space. We're lucky enough to have this window that streams in light during the day, but in the evenings it's really quiet, cozy, only lit by these table lamps. And another thing we really love to do is add art lighting. So there's always a little bit of a sparkle on some of the pieces of art. So I started this project. I became really inspired by the Grand Central ceiling because I walk through there every day. So I thought I would paint our horoscope signs. So this is my husband's and mine is over here. And then I'm still in the process of doing this. So I have one little star for one of our children, and I'm going to add another star from our other child, and then I'll probably do like some sort of little doggy star sign or something. There's a little constellation that looks like a dog that I may do in one other corner. So this is sort of an ongoing project. I like the idea of just having things that are kind of unexpected in certain spaces. These nightstands are these hand-painted pieces from India. I love them. I think having things that are hand-painted and hand-hewn are really lovely to have around. And I love the color and the pattern on these. So these are two pieces that my dad painted in the 60s. He used to teach, in addition to being a furniture maker, he taught shop to high school students when he was really young. And I really don't know why these would have been part of that, but they were painted during that time. But I think they're so 60s and so cool. And I love things that are, I love Americana stuff. So like these two just totally speak to me. We often do pieces like this, built-in millwork for a lot of our projects. It's so much more, you can get so much more out of a space when you're building something in rather than just buying a piece of furniture. It can be very deliberate. Like, these drawers are exactly the size of a laptop. So I can keep a laptop in here along with some other things that I'm just like grabbing and taking with me every day. So you can be thoughtful about things like that when you're building something in. So we'll head into this bathroom that's off of our bedroom, and this is one of my favorite spaces actually. We just finished this recently and we really wanted this to feel like a brighter, fresher space. It's super functional. We have our laundry area here, but on this side we have a lot of storage and like a built-in hamper, great drawer storage for whatever you need to hide in here. And I love this countertop. This is this great French company that does beautiful lava stone. And this stuff is so durable. In fact, I was so worried about it that I got a sample and I was literally like hitting it with a hammer and it wasn't breaking. So this stuff is so durable. I love it. We decided to paint everything a really soft white in here just because I wanted it to feel fresher and brighter. We've incorporated a lot of pattern with the floor tile, this mosaic in multicolored from Artistic Tile, and then this fun wallpaper. Another thing we wanted to do is really incorporate natural stones. So we've created this ledge here and have mimicked it over here for a counter. This is another great storage solution. Again, super custom because we were only able to get about 4 inches of depth here, but in this area we could go back further. So we just took this medicine cabinet as deep as it could go. This actually is a European toilet. It's from Devon & Devon, an Italian company. I love the look of this. I love this kind of, that it's into the wall. This is also such a space saver because these are, if you're able to build them in like this, you do have to pack out the wall a little bit for the actuator to be built into that. But this sticks out so much less than a regular toilet would. So in a small space like this, it's actually perfect. Now I'm going to take you to my son Avery's room. Now we're in my son Avery's room, who is 11 and is obsessed with Legos. So we have this cabinet which is full of Legos. We really just try to keep this room kind of simple. This was the original brick wall that was running throughout this whole apartment. This is the only place that you can see the original brick wall, which we thought was kind of cool to keep in this case. This room we decided to paint everything, the walls, the baseboard, the casings, the same color. I think it creates a little bit of a richer feeling in spaces that are smaller. We do have one wall of wallpaper here, and this is from Flavor Paper. This is the Brooklyn Toile, which is so iconic, but I think it's sort of fun in his space. And again, red and blue color combination that I love. This is a great room that it represents that. So there are some nostalgic pieces in this room that are really special, maybe more to me than my son, but also to him. This is a piece that I was given when I was really young. It was by the artist who drew all the Clifford books, and my mother met him and then he drew this, and it's very special to me. And then this cool poster, it's like a vinyl poster that would hang in a gas station. This is one that's a smaller version that my father has. He, again, an avid collector, has this full gas station full of memorabilia, and this is one that my son liked, so we found a smaller version, and so it's sort of a good memory of his grandfather. Avery's a real artist, so we have this sort of revolving wall of artwork that we change out often. So these are small canvases that he has painted, and we'll change these out every once in a while. He's got drawings and sculptures propped up everywhere. Another thing he loves is Titanic. So These are 4 Titanic replicas that he has made out of Legos. That's another deep love of his. These are storage boxes for thousands of Legos. Very necessary. This is a great lamp that I got at auction years ago. It's a vintage James Mott lamp. We used to have this in our living room, but it seemed like it was working really well in here, and he needed some more light, so we've brought this big boy into this room. I love that piece though. Another bit of Americana. I love that pattern too. I think it's an old Brunswick and Fee. I don't think they make that one anymore, but I love that it has the presidents, like the first 5 presidents on horses. I think it's so cool. So now we're in our bathroom, and we didn't do a ton to this space. We left the black and white floor tile just because we kind of liked it, and this really simple wall tile with this trim. I like the traditional detailing of this with a trim detail running around the shower. One thing we did do is add this Christian Lacroix wallpaper. It's just metallic with all these cards. I think it's so fun. We wrapped it onto the ceiling just because we wanted it to feel really enveloping in this space. It's tough sometimes with interior bathrooms. Every bathroom with a window is so great. So when you don't have that luxury, I think kind of treating it again in a jewel box kind of fashion helps. It makes it feel a little bit more kind of comfortable and comforting to be within. So this bathroom is really small and we all use it, and we were constantly getting our towels mixed up. So I've now employed a initial system where you hang your towel where your initial is, and it's working out really well. We're not mixing up our towels anymore. In spaces like this, I love these kind of swing arm multiple towel hooks, because we don't really have the space for big towel bars everywhere. So I think this is really working well for us, this solution. So this is one of my favorite spaces. It's my daughter Willa's room, and I love this nook bed that we made for her. It's a full-size bed, and it's in a pretty small space, so I think it feels really generous even though it's a small room. She's got places for all of her books and her artwork and her costumes, and tons of storage underneath with these big deep drawers. She keeps it pretty tidy in here, I must say. This side, she has a ton of musical instruments. She's a musician, and then she creates a lot of costumes, so this is something she's been working on. Overall, it's a really beautiful sort of light-filled space. She gets a lot of great light in here. This is another Benjamin Moore color. It's a very, very soft lavender. These Moroccan rugs are so forgiving. They're so thick, and because they're wool, they're really easy to keep clean. So even though this one's a light one, it starts to make this whole space feel really light and bright, but it's also really durable because stains come right out of it since it's wool. This is a cool vintage poster that I found at Philip Williams down on Chambers Street, and it's like a section of a house, but it's in French, and I think it's it's the kind of piece that I need to have in my home. I love this thing. This piece of art is something that Willa made several years ago, and I love the colors, and she still loves it, so we have this hanging over her headboard. This is another place where sconces and built-in lighting have become really important. So we have these cool swing arm sconces that she can raise or lower. We have art lighting above the bed on this side, which starts to highlight her sculptures and her costumes that she likes to work on. This is a mobile that I made for Willie when she was a baby. These are some grapevine branches that my godmother gave me. And then another dear friend helped me sew these little birds, and then we pieced it together for her. So this has been in her room since she was a baby. My dad built this table. This side table has kind of been with us for a couple of years. It used to be in our living room, but my daughter took it over since she has her records, and she does a lot of artwork on this as well. So there's paint on it at the moment, but my dad built this for us a couple years back. So this home means a lot to me. It's a place that our family can come together. We're all being pulled into a lot of different directions, so it's our constant, it's our place that we can gather, and it's our refuge. The kids are growing up and we're all traveling a lot and have pretty busy lives, so this has just been a place where we really do actually relax here, and we really kind of come together, and we'll play chess together. We actually do things together as a family when we're here, which I really appreciate, because those times are becoming fewer and further between since my kids are getting a little older. We've put a lot of ourselves into this apartment. It's definitely not a place that is going to be for everybody, but it's like definitely a reflection of who we are and the things that we love to surround ourselves with, and we really love it here. Thanks, Homeworthy, for visiting my home today. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.